couple days ago, Dr. Disrespect reapplied for monetization on his YouTube channel. He's currently been demonetized. He can't make money off ads or memberships on there. But every once in a while on YouTube, you are allowed to reapply for monetization. And so he just was eligible for that and resubmitted it. We don't know how that's going to go, but I have heard quite a few people in the commentary sphere arguing that according to TOS, they do actually think it's probably fair to remonetize him because all we really have is rumors and then him saying he inappropriately messaged a minor in the deleted tweet. And I mean, if you're purely looking at it from TOS, I can kind of see that argument. But I would just imagine that YouTube is going to be thinking more from a greater business perspective rather than following the TOS to a T. Because I mean, we've seen lots of times that Twitch and YouTube and stuff, they're willing to bend the rules for their biggest creators. Usually that's in their favor, but the precedent has already been set. They don't follow TOS to a T, obviously. And so I would just think that YouTube is thinking, is it worth remonetizing this guy? Sure, we'll make some money off of it. In the grand scheme of things, it's going to be entirely insignificant relative to what YouTube makes. And there is a pretty decent downside. Like you don't want that story coming out really that YouTube remonetized this guy after the rumors came out and then it was confirmed that he was doing PDF activities. So my guess from thinking from that perspective would be that they don't do it. But I mean, maybe they do. Maybe they do. I don't know. I wouldn't be shocked for sure. I would not be shocked if it happened. And then also, this PC Gamer article was published 2 days ago titled Dr. Disrespect predicts he'll return to Deadrop developer Midnight Society. That's the 2 Times studio. So that, obviously that's the studio that he helped found, and he was ousted by the company. And one of the guys at one of the higher ups at that company said that it was because, he could never do business with a guy who had done what Dr. Disrespect did. And that was after they supposedly did a little bit of their own investigation. They did not drop him right away, just, when the news got big. So it seems weird that they would do that to me, but Dr. Disrespect seems to have reason to believe that. 3 months after being fired by Midnight Society over an exchange of inappropriate messages with a minor, Guy Beam, the streamer better known as Dr. Disrespect, has stated that it's still his studio and predicts he'll return to it sooner or later. It struck me as kind of odd when Beam returned to streaming earlier this month. Links to Midnight Society remained in his X and Instagram profiles. I thought at first it was an oversight, a bit of house cleaning left undone, but as the days and weeks passed, the links remained. Now we know why. Because Beam isn't going away quietly. He made that clear about his streaming career when he returned to action on YouTube with a 20-minute rant against his Twitch ban and claims that it was driven by a conspiracy against him. And it turns out he has similar thoughts about his role at Midnight Society. That's the 2 Times studio, Beam said in a recent stream via Dexerto, using his preferred self-reference as the 2-time NBA Jam tournament champion. That's the 2 Times game. That's my vision for a game. Eric, presumably concept artist Eric Hallquist, and I concepted out the original concept years ago. We concepted out the concept. You guys remember that? We talked about it. We created the studio with a few other individuals. We grew the team. Yeah, it's still in my bio, and I just got a feeling. Just give it a little bit more time. We'll be right back in it. We'll be right back in it, champs. Just give it some time. Not a problem. Is that what this is?
Doc, you still have Midnight Society in your bio. Yeah. I mean, it's the 2 Times studio. That's the 2 Times game. That's my vision for a game. Eric and I, we concepted out the original concept years ago. You guys remember that? We talked about it. Boom, we created the studio with a few other individuals. We grew the team. Yeah, it's still in my bio. And I just got a feeling, just give it a little bit more time. But we'll be right back in it. We'll be right back in it, champs. Just give us some time. Not a problem.
I'm genuinely curious, why he thinks that would be the case if he has any thing of substance to that, or if he just is trying to manifest it through positive affirmations. I don't know. But it would be pretty like monumental to his return if he got remonetized and he was back part of his studio. I mean, especially with the viewership he's been getting, he's basically back to what he was. No one barely missed a beat. It's a bold statement, but not entirely without basis. Deadrop has been popularly known as Dr. Disrespect's game since the very beginning, and he was the very high-profile public face of the game and the studio making it until his June dismissal. Questions about Midnight Society's prospects without Beam as its chief cheerleader followed almost immediately in the wake of that split, and major layoffs that occurred just a few months later didn't make the situation look any sunnier. It's not likely those cuts were driven by Beam's termination. The past 2 years have seen a virtual decimation of the video game industry as the heady days of the COVID-19 quarantine gave way to an entirely predictable return to reality that game company executives were somehow unable to predict. But his removal sparked a vocal backlash from early supporters and players who were in it primarily or entirely because of Beam's involvement. Yeah, that's why I think this happening is probably more likely than the YouTube, or not necessarily more likely. It makes more sense from a business perspective, because I think, yeah, most people probably wouldn't have heard of the game if not for Dr. Disrespect. So it would make sense that they want him back for promotional reasons and stuff. But from the way that the guy tweeted about ousting him, saying, you can't work with a guy like that, that would make me think they still wouldn't. But I don't know. I don't know. Maybe he'll get rack up 2 quick wins here. After initially telling PC Gamer that Beam won't be back, Midnight Society took a more conciliatory tone in a follow-up statement that sidestepped the question of his predicted comeback. We amicably parted ways with Dr. Disrespect and will always be appreciative of his contributions to the studio, a studio representative said. Our focus is shipping Deadrop in 2025. So yeah, that is a little bit weird of an energy change. As for Deadrop itself, work continues. Midnight Society recently shared a new gameplay trailer showcasing the state of the game, as well as Q&A threads touching on a range of topics including specific gameplay elements, rewards, and future plans. Deadrop gameplay. Okay, nothing much to that. Andy Chalk wrote that article for us. Yeah. So, yeah, for the YouTube one from a business perspective, for sure does not make sense to me. I wouldn't see them doing that because they're not really. I don't think that YouTube feels any obligation to abide TOS perfectly and let Dr. Disrespect get remonetized for that. Not to say they won't do it. Definitely could happen. I would think no. The game studio opening back up to him seems more realistic, especially with that guy that tweeted out, oh, we mutually parted ways or whatever. That does make it more believable. And I mean, it does seem like people are more or less happy to have Dr. Disrespect back. So it wouldn't be the craziest thing if they did that, which is ridiculous and pretty disappointing to be saying. But if I'm honest about what I'm looking at, I do think there's a decent chance that one or both of these things goes well for him. I mean, it's probably happened to worse people, but damn, man. Honestly, it seems like it happens way too often, but I mean, that's what people always say. Hollywood is so corrupt and stuff, and YouTubers have just recreated it.